And so what I'm doing actually at the moment is thinking of a way to phrase this Well, okay, so in terms of an introduction, what I'm trying to do is generate a brief guide on a particular topic. And at this point, several tools are involved. So right now I'm using one of Gemini's newer models to just simply generate a short informative blog post based on this high-level overview, which was generated using Perplexity. So based on this initial aggregated response, along with a more in-depth overview of the Dify AI framework, we'll use the LearnLM 1.5 Pro experimental. And so it generates a readable document. And so one thing I have it adjust is to focus on just one aspect of an assertion it makes in the initial draft. Dify AI, an open-source large language model app development platform, offers flexibility for deployment across various cloud environments. Among these, Azure stands out due to its enhanced stability, reliability, and scalability. So I follow up with a prompt asking it to explain the features of Azure that make it stand out over other service providers such as AWS or GCP. And one thing that I didn't think of that makes sense to focus on for this is the integration with the Microsoft ecosystem. So it keeps the same introductory sentence, which I might adjust later. The stability, reliability, and scalability. For the Azure service, those things are sort of already implied, as much as anything can be in this field. So I might just take that out altogether. but that does then highlight the relevance to organizations already invested in the Microsoft ecosystem. And yeah, so this is sort of meant to be just, oh, by the way, you can, if you didn't think to do this, here's, something that just came across earlier today on a feed. Which is just, I guess a brief overview to deploy this microservice architecture using Azure. It suggests that the simplest way to do so is using Docker Compose. I assume with a virtual machine template. It doesn't necessarily mention that, but this is also in the context of initial exploration and testing, which you can also do that on your local machine as well. If you have Docker Desktop for Windows or Mac, it's it's a pretty heavy how should I say, framework, Docker Desktop that is, but it does provide a handy interface for getting something like this up and running. But having said that, the focus is more on putting together well, so for example, Azure's PaaS offerings could be utilized for database and backend caching, connected to, I assume I don't remember anymore, but a virtual network of some sort of VLAN to the actual container services running the web UI components. And then without an Azure account personally, I can only go as far as to say, oh yeah, this is a good idea. What I would like to follow up with after this paragraph would be just a short video clip demonstrating setting up the PaaS services with the container services and the VLAN necessary, and perhaps a guide 2 or 3 volumes down the road would contain I suppose, guide instructions on setting up high availability with this sort of thing. And then so with the Dify application, there are some configuration things to be mindful of, which I would like to expand upon. So there's storage configuration, environmental variables, and so actually, yeah, that would be another thing I would add to the list. Storage. Right. And then another nice thing about this too is Dify has, or Dify, I believe it's pronounced. It looks like Dify, and I think that sounds cute, but I don't believe that's how it's actually pronounced. Dify. Anywho, it does support Azure OpenAI fine-tuned models as well, which is particularly useful with domain-specific how do I say? Well, there's the retrieval augmented generation, and then there's the fine tuning of a particular model. It seems most beneficial to have a hybrid approach of utilizing both. Both present wildly different challenges. So there's that sort of technical back-end aspect of what this is about. And so I provided some more information regarding the functionality that Dify provides. And right now, one of the things that I'm sort of focused on is the integration of these tools into a certain support engineer workflow, where in this case, if I had to go through all these key features for that, as far as customizing workflow needs, it's much easier to work through this interface with the low code, the drag and drop module interface. You know, if you don't need to route that to X engineer, you know, don't do that sort of thing. That ties into creating custom assistants. But yeah, one of the things that would I'd say, well, requires a lot of attention, but would be, I guess, what I see as the most key feature in this platform. Let's go back. Those are all. So this is the interface for adding documents to the vector store. To get back to one thing that I forgot to bookmark was a handy study on text splitting. Found it. We found that it was necessary to alter some defaults to achieve fair results. By default, the recursive character text splitter uses the following separators: new line, space, and no space. We found this would commonly result in very short chunks, which perform poorly in comparison to token text splitter, which produces chunks of a fixed length by default. Therefore, we used this array of new lines punctuation as the set of separators. And I did notice similar Well, so anyway, I'm sort of doing this off the cuff here. With the delimiter, it looks like it doesn't require the actual delimiter to be placed around quotes. It looks like it just has it in parens separated by comma. And then so you also have your various retrieval settings. Oh, there we go. Nice. Which allows selecting the embedding model. Choose from either a straight vector search, which searches for text chunks most similar to its vector representation, or a full text search, which indexes all of the terms in the document. Then, of course, the recommended hybrid: execute a full text and vector simultaneously, re-rank to select the best match for the user's query. And then save and process. And with larger documents, this can take several minutes. And this is most likely... Oh, no. Take that back. Rate limit error. You have not yet... let's see. And have reduced to rate limits of... Oh, 3 RPM and 10K TPM. Okay. I'll switch over to the latest Cohere embed model. Also, rate limited. So it's limiting to 40 API calls a minute. I must be doing these in parallel, okay. Oh, I didn't realize. Didn't realize I had deleted the image. So yeah, despite my limitations with this particular setup, it's actually relatively less complex to get domain-specific documents into a reference knowledge base, where then a workflow can be created around that. So the types of applications would include chatbot-based service, an agent which can use external tools like searches and other various APIs, just a straight text generator. Or perhaps, for example, you can just craft a prompt that outputs text in a specific style, or just summarizes certain aspects of certain, say, support tickets in a certain style. Then there's chat flows and workflows, which in essence comprise of various components of these three application types. So yeah, this is a text generation application. The objective is to assess a draft of a technical document. Your tasks include extracting main themes to organize and structure a narrative while maintaining a consistent voice or persona throughout a data story. Your goal is to provide a thorough evaluation of the draft's effectiveness in achieving these objectives. And there's various criteria that it should be assessing with. Oh, wow, okay. All right, so it gives a breakdown of the thinking process to evaluate. The goal is to assess a technical document draft focusing on main themes, narrative structure, voice consistency, and data story integration. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay. I didn't see this. It just didn't register. Here's a breakdown of the thinking process to evaluate the Dify or Dify AI on Azure Draft. One, understand the core objective. The goal is to assess a technical document focusing on main themes, narrative structures, voice consistency, and data story integration. The output needs to be an analytical evaluation and suggestions for improvement, including lexical variations. First, read the draft through to get a general understanding of its purpose and flow. Note initial impressions regarding clarity, organization, and overall effectiveness. In this case, the draft seems like a standard getting started guide. So this is pretty cool. I wasn't expecting this. I guess, yeah, I'm curious to see what else here. Deconstruct by assessment criteria. Identify explicit statements of purpose. For example, getting started with Dify AI on Azure. Advantages for organizations already within the ecosystem. Well, this is one thing that's highlighted in the introductory paragraph. Oh, sorry, it's up here. This is one thing that's highlighted. However, I wouldn't say it's an explicit statement of purpose as much as, oh, by the way, it's handy for this reason. The main purpose is to begin the, I suppose, documentation process of this particular framework. And the challenge for me right now is putting as much of this together without actually being able to test it or implement it. So that's, yeah, it's well, there was a thread on LinkedIn that I stumbled across earlier this morning, and there's a post for a seminar that's being live streamed sometime next week. And that's for traditional Chinese. How do I say? Right. Yeah. Well, it's not something that I personally come across very often. The idea of using Dify and Azure never occurred to me because I don't use Azure for personal projects, but the post prompted my attention. It got me kind of excited until I realized that I don't speak traditional Chinese, which makes things somewhat uncomfortable for me, in the sense that it just feels uncomfortable when you don't speak a particular language that has the information you're interested in. So anyway, wanting to keep that sort of fresh in my head, is that sort of the general direction that outside of programmatically putting this together, this would be the direction I would recommend. Not because it's necessarily, going to be advertised as, I suppose, grand as other solutions, but it makes sense as two frameworks that are well put together. Dify has also one other feature, one really, how do I say, key feature, is its integration with LangFuse and other language model tracing applications. But through those tracings, you can see that the logical routes that these applications take to get from generation to formatting to output is very clean, very minimal compared to a lot of other of the module low-code, no-code platforms. And then so, yeah, I suppose, slight barrier to hooking this up with Azure is the containerization aspect, which Terraform was recommended. Personally, that would be a learning barrier as far as getting that fully optimized. But conceptually. But yeah, so getting back to this tangent, using the the Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking experimental, it gives a breakdown of the thinking process to evaluate, which I think is great. So then it sort of provides this template for assessing these sort of things. So now, in the future, the next time I go to do this, I won't need to rely on it so much to identify reoccurring concepts, because, well, now I know to look for them, things like that. However, it feels more like a series of informational sections rather than a cohesive narrative. I agree. Integrating the reasons for choosing both together could strengthen the narrative. For example, illustrating how a specific feature benefits specifically from being deployed on Azure. Yeah, that's the goal. That's I suppose part 2. The flow is generally good, but could be smoother. The transition from the benefits sections to the practical deployment steps could be more contextualized. Consider a bridging statement that explicitly connects the advantages to the necessity of the understanding deployment. So yeah, what I would do with this one is prompt a model to do just that with the well, with the two statements that are to be bridged. So, that's one way to do that. This could also be copied and pasted into a text editor, and the bridging statement that explicitly connects the advantages to the necessity could be thought out as well. I'm not entirely sure which is the path of least resistance, but I enjoy using the tools quite a bit. So, anywho. The story aspect is primarily in explaining how to use the platform, not necessarily why it's compelling beyond its features. So yeah, that's another part I wanted to work on, the framing. So presenting features as solutions to common challenges, brief scenarios, and quantifiable benefits. I'll just start with the first two, problem solution framing with a brief scenario. So this is where I'll mark this as a break. What I'm going to do now is run the transcript of this dictation to generate a backlog of items for this article generation.